Compass Mining is your trusted partner in Bitcoin mining. Whether you're investing in one machine or thousands, our customizable solutions are tailored to meet your needs. We are your experts in Bitcoin mining, offering a platform where individuals and businesses can purchase hardware, host machines, and access a range of ancillary Bitcoin mining services. We also specialize in large-scale site development and data center operations. Discover more at compassmining.io and see how we can power your success today. Hey miners, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, the official home of power mining analysis. Merry Christmas to all of our subscribers and viewers. Boxing Day here, the markets are open. Bitcoin miners are split once again. We're going to talk about the price action we saw over the holiday break and an update from DMG and Hive in terms of some news that just came out this week. We've got a lot to go through. Before we get into it, take a second, smash the like button, you guys. Big help to myself and the channel. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join. And let us know in the comment section below how you're feeling about the Bitcoin miners in the final week of 2024 and your outlook for next year. Now, with that being said, let's get into today's video. Okay, guys, so that's right. The day after Christmas, we have Boxing Day here, Anthony. First and foremost, Merry Christmas. Hope you had a good break there. Lots to talk about in the Bitcoin mining sector, but we wanted to thank everyone for the support this year and obviously wish them a happy holidays before we get going here.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, Bryce. Still a public holiday in the UK today, but America is markets are open today, so I'm assuming they don't treat it as a holiday like the UK, but it's Boxing Day. Boxing Day in the UK today.
Nice. Yeah, I don't even know if it's a holiday here or not, but the good old capital markets are up and rocking. In terms of the capital markets here today, Anthony, kind of a split across the board. The general theme we wanted to talk about, obviously the miners have come under some pressure here in the final weeks of 2024. We've seen a lot of development in terms of these companies throughout the year. Going into the halving, Anthony, you talked about the importance of fleet efficiency, access to cheap power, managing your balance sheet. We've seen a number of these companies diversify into HPC, AI. We're going to talk about some new developments today actually as well that further extenuates this point, but we really feel the miners have been busy in 2024, although MicroStrategy and Bitcoin for the majority of the miners has performed very well. So we feel like 2025 may be the year of the miner, Anthony. They're ready to run, they're ready to break out, and that's what we want to talk about in today's video. So in terms of Bitcoin price here, over the holiday break, really kind of in that $95,000, $96,000 range, Anthony. We did see some excitement up to, I think, 108,000 just about a week ago, but it has cooled off a little bit going into the holidays here.
Yeah, it looked like it was heading towards 100,000 yesterday, and this morning it pulled back 3 or 4,000. So yeah, in that range, 95, 96,000. But bear in mind, just over a month ago, we were in the 70,000 bracket, so people shouldn't be too deterred. Mining companies have had maybe not as good a year as 2023 in terms of performance. We've seen a few miners who've done really, really well this year, noticeably Core Scientific, but I mean, bear in mind, they came out of Chapter 11, so their share price at one point was literally 4 cents a share. At its worst, and I think that was just before or just as it going into Chapter 11. But that's done remarkably well this year, and everything they've touched has basically turned to gold. I mean, they've got the biggest HPC contract out there by some distance, $500+ million net profit a year over the next 12, 13 years, and there's 2 5-year extensions well onto that. So. And that's where they currently are. They want to expand the HPC, probably another 100, 130 megawatts. And there's no doubt, as one of the best HPC or data center builders in the market at the moment, they'll get to that target. So, you could add on another 100+ million in terms of annualized net profit, and that will be a really great delivery. For a company that's had its challenges. I mean, Chapter 11 for well over a year, learned the hard lessons, but under the leadership now of Adam Sullivan and supported by a great team, they've come out of 2024 with probably, obviously the best performance this year. But we've got other miners like Bitdeer, TeraWulf, and Hut 8 also having really, really good years. For a good year for a number of reasons. We've seen the likes of the HPC announcements from TeraWulf recently. They've been telling us all about that all the way through this last sort of 5 or 6 months, looking to move some of their power away from self-mining into the HPC market, and they've delivered that. Now they're now planning this 70 megawatts of power to deliver HPC. Hut 8, all bar announcing the partner, they're going to deliver a contract well over 400 megawatts of power to to a HPC client. That's been leaked by a number of sources, but we'll wait for Hut 8 to announce it formally. But there's an expectation. We might all well know the name of that company before it's announced, so we'll play that one when it comes along. Bitdeer has probably been a surprise package this year for a number of reasons. Yes, they're moving into HPC. They're a self miner. They're a hosted miner. They're management services. They've got so many different strings to the bow. And then they come out this year and announce they're building their own machines, which is game changing, really, because you've got to remember who Bitdeer were formerly. They were formerly part of the Bitmain company, and Bitmain's the largest producer of mining machines in the world by an enormous amount. I mean, I think they control over 8% of the market. So now Bitdeer are starting to manufacture their own machines, and already took orders for something like 7 exahash of mining machines, which is brilliant. And that's after having developed 3 generation of miners in the same year. Now, we've talked about this before. Normally, these big companies can maybe get a new model out. Think about the Apple iPhone. It's probably one model every year or every other year. Bitdeer have announced 3 different generations of miners. They're already now manufacturing the A2. They're looking at the A3, which will be game changing in terms of efficiency, in terms of power. And so we look forward to seeing that one. But their A2 seal miner has already started to deliver at certain settings 13.5 joules a terahash, which certainly competes with any of the Bitmain models, and certainly far superior in terms of efficiency than the Canaan, Avalon miner and the Micro BT miners. So that seems to have really rocketed their share price in recent weeks. So those people holding Bitdeer will be very pleased with where they are at the moment. They've got enormous amounts of pipeline coming on in 2025, so we look forward to that as well. But their share price has done really well. But as I say, 2025, you think about cycles, this is back to 2021. 4 years ago, we saw the miners run during 2021 when there wasn't really any relative size in some of these companies. We saw Marathon and Riot both nearly reach 8 billion. Well, Marathon did reach 8 billion market cap. Riot weren't far behind that as well. And we've seen this year that Marathon has finally reached 8 billion again, albeit with about 10 times more hash rate than it had in 2021. So, maybe, we'll see, a similar cycle back in 2025, we saw in 2021, where the miners do tend to move, outperform Bitcoin as they do throughout the year. But bear in mind, if it's going to be cycle after cycle, there may well be pullbacks in 2025 as well. My only point on this is we didn't have the ETFs in there, and then we didn't have the level of purchasing that MicroStrategy have been doing. I mean, these ETFs and MicroStrategy just in the last 7 weeks have purchased over 300,000 Bitcoin. That's 1.5% of all the Bitcoin that's ever going to be produced, and they just bought it in the last 7 weeks. What they're doing for the other 45 weeks of the year. I think this is a different period, and I think, if we see more of the bigger listed companies start to add Bitcoin to their balance sheet, like we started to see some of the pension funds do it, then I think really it's game over. And if some of these states start including it as like US estate, they want to have it as a strategic reserve, and we have other states trying to do that as well, then those people that are holding Bitcoin at the moment will be sitting fairly pretty in the forthcoming years.
Yeah, they most definitely will. You went through a lot there, Anthony, and really set the stage for exactly the essence of this podcast. We've seen so many developments this year, you guys, whether you're talking about the seal miner technology, new data centers, the ETFs coming in, the Trump administration. There's been so much good news. We talked, I think, 2 podcasts ago, Anthony. It felt a few years back like we couldn't get one single positive news story in the Bitcoin space. This year, it seems we've had nothing but positive. However, as you say, only a handful of miners have outperformed Bitcoin if you were to hold them all year. Now, we've talked a lot about the volatility on this channel, the importance of timing your entries and your exits, taking profits when it makes sense or when we've seen a big run. But as you say, if you held through the year, definitely a challenge for many of the miners, despite the macro environment that we just talked about. So, great point you bring up in price of Bitcoin as well. So, a few weeks ago, we were very optimistic we'd be seeing 110, 120, 130. You and I thought we maybe undershot our Miner Madness Q4 predictions. Now, Anthony, Bitcoin price is trading right smack dab in the middle of your prediction at 88,880 and mine at 99,990. So we have 5 days left in the competition. What I love about this competition, it really highlights exactly what we just talked about. All of these companies are in the same industry. They all mine Bitcoin. They all have the same price of Bitcoin that they're selling for. However, just in this short 3 month period, we've seen a dramatic change in the percentage returns between our first and last place in this competition, Anthony. So I think nowhere for me more clearly than this competition does it highlight the importance of being selective, doing your due diligence, your education, and being prepared to take profits when it makes sense. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that as it relates to Miner Madness, but also as it relates to the sector in general.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we had a great number of entries into the competition. And bear in mind, I think we mentioned it before, but we had to exclude in the region of 100 entries because they didn't complete the basic requirement of picking 3 miners and the Bitcoin price. I know it was a challenging request for a lot of people to do, but 100 people didn't get that right. And we tried to go back to these people and say, look, come on, you've got time. We'll accept your whatever choice you put it up to now, but you need to make sure that you fulfill the criteria. And we got a few coming back and saying yes, but majority of them clearly didn't respond, and so but we've got a great number going through, and the interest has been seen because we can track the algorithm and when people enter the website. So we've been looking at that on a regular basis, and we've seen people looking at leaderboard, not just the general leaderboard, but also that people have been paying attention to the analyst leaderboard as well, because we selected 7 of the people in the space, in the analyst space there who do regular social media. We added ourselves to that list to make it 9. And at the moment, Bryce, I think you're still heading the list in first place in terms of the analyst leaderboard, and I'm not too far behind you in second place. So with a few more days to go, hopefully we can hold off the rest of the competition, and we'll have our own celebration post then. But we can't celebrate for too long because, as you know, Miner Madness 2.0 will start with effect from the 13th of January. And so entries need to be in place by the 10th of January. And if you want to start adding your entries in, we do have a pinned tweet on the Power Mining Analysis Twitter account or X account.
Yeah, good point, Anthony. The second approved sign up method is actually our Miner Madness 2.0 video we put out last week as well. So I'll throw the thumbnail up here. This does a full walkthrough of how the competition works if it's your first time. And then we'll probably be putting out a video to wrap up Q1 Miner Madness and give you guys a bit of information there as well. But you're exactly right, Anthony. A ton of interest in this competition. And for me, even if you just look at the analyst leaderboard, the spread between first place, which happens to be myself, and last place here, nearly 45%. And that's in one quarter. picking from the same 14 or 16 stocks out of the Bitcoin mining basket. So again, just a great example of why it matters so much to stay on top of your portfolios. Now, Anthony, we talked a lot about some of the developments, the catalysts, the steps these companies have taken to prepare for the halving, to prepare for 2025. We've got news now from DMG and Hive, exactly what we just mentioned, preparing these companies for next year. DMG, maybe we can cover them first. We've talked about Sheldon and Steve's, I guess, plethora of ideas and patents, different ways to generate revenue at the company. They've come out now with another patent being secured for DMG blockchain. But one of the oldest operators in the space, Anthony, and really have their hands in nearly every pie in the Bitcoin sector.
Yeah, absolutely. We've mentioned Sheldon's been around longer than pretty much everybody else in the Bitcoin mining space, certainly from the public company side of it. He was previously, I think, with Bitfury. He's created DMG himself, built it up from the ground upwards, and he's been involved in so many different areas of this space, from creating his own mining pool to helping other miners build their own sites, create infrastructure on some of these sites. But they've just announced again, another patent, which it's for cryptographic taint tracking, which is going to enhance the capability in detecting, monitoring tainted cryptographic wallets. So this patent actually builds on the foundation of an earlier patent which supported anti-money laundering, and it's really about bolstering DMG's clean block mining initiative. Some of the features that are included in this, it detects wallets linked with legal activities, therefore ensuring, compliance, real-time risk flagging, and the ability to quarantine risky wallets. Sheldon's emphasized the importance of this technology in prompting trust and regulatory compliance within the blockchain ecosystem. And they've additionally, they've done so much work in this space. They're really focusing on having a green pool. So the Bitcoin that's mined in that green point is 100% mined carbon free. So hats off to Sheldon and the team at DMG. Another great initiative announced in the last couple of days. So very much worth emphasizing on the channel today.
Yeah, and really between the work they've done on their trust and their TerraPool, Anthony, exactly what you say, they're putting together a platform where you can basically transact end to end in renewably sourced or sustainable Bitcoin that has not had any carbon associated with it. Now, this patent really taking that a step further, ensuring you're not interacting with any bad actors on the blockchain network itself, and securing or quarantining some of those more risky wallets, as you say, Anthony. So, again, really the bleeding edge of technology and innovation from the team at DMG. Not to mention, they just made a nice size fleet upgrade before the holiday break there as well. So great to see. Another one, smaller Canadian miner, we've talked about a lot on the channel, really making waves. With Hive expanding their NVIDIA chip suite, both the H100 and 200s, with a $30 million investment here in Canada in the province of Quebec.
Yeah, I mean, Hive's one of these mining companies, the oldest public miner in North America. So when you look at the 30 or so public miners now, Hive did this before everybody else, closely followed by the likes of Hut 8 and Bitfarms. So those are the three oldest public miners out there. For some reason, all Canadian. But Hive moved into the HPC space earlier than most of the miners that have announced, recent transitions to high performance computing. They were previously a Ethereum miner, and when the fork occurred back in September 22, they had an enormous amount of GPUs available to that were no longer, able to mine Ethereum. So they were looking for alternative use for those, and they started to talk about that point. The HPC, some of their the actual chips were viable for HPC data centers, and so they started to build up a HPC business using some of these chips, and also investing in some of the H100s previously. Now, they've announced in the last couple of days this 30 million investment in the 100 and the H200 GPU clusters in Quebec, and this is going to enhance its position in the blockchain and AI sectors. Now, the first set to be delivered will be the H100 cluster, which is 248 GPUs, set to be operational by the end of this year. So, probably as we speak now, these are being, installed and energized. And with these these additional 248 GPUs are projecting annual revenues of around about 15 million. Now, in 2025, they'll be installing about 508 H200 cluster GPUs, expected to arrive in January, and therefore aiming for over 20 million revenue by mid-2025. And as we know, Hive, like DMG, utilize 100% renewable energy, which is one of their goals, while addressing the growing demand for AI computing power. Now, the company has set targets, and we've got a slide to highlight the targets where they started off. They were currently earning somewhere in the region of close to $250,000 a week. Now that's going to be $250,000 a day during 2025, because they've set a target of about 100 million in annual revenue by the end of 2025 by transitioning from Bitcoin mining to HPC services. And I was fortunate to visit one of their sites in Boden, Sweden, back in October, and to see firsthand that they were ready to sort of move those sites, which had previously been used for Bitcoin mining, and utilizing the sites over there for high performance computing, and see some of the GPUs already being installed and energized on that visit. So that was my first time going to see a HPC data center. I've been fortunate this year to visit two companies in terms of Riot Platforms and Core Scientific back in June, but this was the first time to go and visit a HPC data center. And I managed to visit that with Frank Holmes and with Aidan Killick, the CEO, for a really, really worthwhile visit, and taught me a lot, during that visit about, the setup there. So this is more aligning now to show what they're going to be doing in HPC. 100 million is no small amount. And bear in mind, for a company that is currently valued at probably just under the 500 million mark, this is 100 million of annual revenue in HPC. And by middle of next year, from quarter 2 to quarter 3, they're aiming for 15 exahash in Bitcoin mining. So the Bitcoin mining isn't stopping at all. It's still growing, and it's going to be growing effectively, really significantly, once they start energizing their new facility in Paraguay. Now, we do know that in the first quarter next year, they're hoping to get 2 exahash energized, and there's a further 6 or 7 exahash to be energized, probably Q2, Q3, which will get them to that 15 exahash. They're also looking to upgrade some of their current fleet, and they've been doing this all through 2024. So, whereas you see, the likes of CleanSpark and IREN and Riot going out there with these big orders, Hive have been doing these relatively smaller orders, but they've been upgrading their fleet at the same time. So they'll order 1,000 S21s here this week, 1,000 S21s a week later, and they'll do regular announcements like that. So they're looking to grow a little bit more organically. They haven't gone out there and smashed the ATM like some companies. And time will tell which strategy has proved to be the better strategy. But Hive tend to be very much cost focused. You look at the G&A costs, there's not many companies that can match their G&A costs in terms of percentage of revenues that is spent on G&A. One of the lowest of the miners, if not the lowest. And so they do keep themselves concerned about keeping their costs low, which is one of the key principles in Bitcoin mining. You've got to make sure you can keep your costs low. There's no never-ending hamster wheel of revenues coming through, but Hive have proven over the last 4 years. Bear in mind, in 2021, 2022, they were earning more revenue than every other miner, including the likes of Marathon Digital and Riot Platforms. So hopefully they can get back to those levels with this new HPC expansion that's in play now.
Compass Mining makes Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone. Start mining in as little as 48 hours with our turnkey hardware, online and mining directly to your Bitcoin wallet within 2 business days. Find out more at compassmining.io and get started now. Most definitely. Now, thinking back over the year, Anthony, it's interesting we talk so much now about HPC. This was a concept that was virtually unknown in this sector 12 months ago, and really that cores contract solidified that for the entire sector. Now we've seen nearly every company, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2, follow suit. So my final question for you today, 2024, the general themes, there were a lot of ATM activity. We saw a lot of press releases about very ambitious exahash goals and targets. Some have worked out very well, some haven't. We talked about putting a target on your back in relation to Bitfarms versus IREN and some of those. Now, Anthony, moving into 2025, the tale has changed. So we talk about HPC, we're talking about convertible notes, access to cheap power, some of these fleet upgrades with the next generation miners. So just like you talked to us prior to saying these are the core things these miners need to watch for, what would you say as we enter 2025 are the top metrics, numbers, inputs that these companies really need to have on their radar?
Well, it's fairly straightforward. I mean, we've talked about the key metrics, and you've just highlighted there. It's about having the cheap power, having the cheapest power, or a power that is. And we've seen miners now circa 3 cents. A couple of miners are under 3 cents now. So IREN's been highlighting in their monthly updates they're achieving under 3 cents on the market rate in Texas at their Childress site. Hut 8 announced, I think it was 2.8 cents across their sites there. This is really, really cheap. You look at some miners who are paying probably 5 cents, maybe 5.5 cents. So if you're paying that level of energy, that's game changing. That's really, that's what's keeping you ahead of your peer miners there. CIFR mining, another one, 2.7 cents a kilowatt hour. Soluna Holdings. We've had John on the podcast many times this year, highlighting they're achieving around about the 3 cents mark, maybe under 3 cents mark there. So that's a big differentiator. You want to make sure that you can get the utilization of your mining machines as high as possible. And we've seen a number of miners, and in 2024, that's generally been led by Hive Digital. They've had some of the highest utilization. CleanSpark have had high utilization. IREN's also in that mix there. The good thing about some of these companies here, and you have to give special, mentions to the likes of IREN and CleanSpark for achieving their goals, and they set ambitious goals at the start of the year, and we followed those goals all the way through. Both of them exceeded their initial goals for 2024. I think if I remember, CleanSpark's was around about 32 exahash. They've achieved 37 and a half. IREN's was 20 exahash. They increased it to 30 exahash during the year, around about the midpoint of the year, where the market really liked that announcement, and the share price motored all the way to, I think it was like $15.50. And then they went ahead and said, well, we're not satisfied with 30, we want 31 exahash. And they've already achieved that. So they've already announced that. Again, special mention again to Riot Platforms this year. I mean, they had a shocking 2023 in terms of production, and we highlighted that. We had Jason on the podcast. I think probably of all the interviews, we probably gave Jason a harder time. We grilled Jason. We weren't happy with his initial responses. We went in and asked for further clarification, and fair play to him. He came out a lot more transparent and articulated as to why their production numbers have been down. Well, if you look at the last 3 or 4 months, we're starting to see a vast improvement between their operational hash rate and their energized or installed hash rate. Not where we want it, but you can see that the gap now is closing very, very quickly. If you look at the growth in those two figures, the operational hash rate is increasing far quicker than the installed hash rate. So it means that they're getting better usage in both of their big sites. And bear in mind, they've got two of the largest mining sites in the world. They've got the largest mining site in the world, and the Corsicana will be the largest mining site in the world. Yeah. So Riot Platforms, I think, could also join that group. Marathon, give them a sort of like a pat as well, because they've achieved the 50 exahash. I think it was around about the 24 exahash at the start of the year. So they've doubled their exahash in 2024. However, one thing with Marathon, they've gone through the same issues that Riot had through 2023 and part of 2024. Their production numbers are not consistent. They had a great November. They had a great January, or was it December last year when they achieved, I
December.
think, December last year. So, if we're remembering the months that they had great months, you can think of the ones where they didn't have great months, and that was the months in between December last year and November this year. So that's 10 months of scratching heads. But if they can start to maintain some consistency in monthly updates, I mean, they've got everything going for them. They've started to buy their own sites. They've got their own mining pool. They're benefiting from their own mining pool. They're able to sort of like eke out more rewards than some of the other pools are giving. They should be benefiting, but they had a really good month in November. I think they literally destroyed everyone in every metric in November. And we just want to see that again in December and January. The shareholders, I'm sure they want us. I want to say I'm a shareholder. People say, "Oh, Anthony's, he's giving Mara a bad time." I'm not giving him a bad time at all. I mean, I've been a shareholder for a long time. I've met Fred, quite a few times now. I've had the chance to speak with him firsthand, talk to him about some of the strategies he's used there. But I've been disappointed, like some of the shareholders have been. It is quite a challenging space to be in. Not every day can be, sunny and the share price increasing by 10%. We've seen that. So hopefully we'll see Marathon's production, December and through 2025, stay at the levels it's been doing in this last month, to give those shareholders the respite they've been looking for.
Yeah, really interesting. You bring up consistency and the importance of operational hash rate, Anthony, as metrics for 2025 keys to success. Now, you've said on a number of podcasts, you don't expect the pullbacks in Bitcoin to be as severe moving forward in subsequent cycles because of things like the ETF and the amount of buying that's going on. I'm seeing a similar trend in terms of revenue as well with HPC. So you've talked a lot about investment banks, Wall Street guys, they want consistent revenue. Now that these companies are fundamentally in a different position, most of them have HPC revenue components. Do you feel like the miners entering 2025 may have more stability, more muted pullbacks, and I guess a stronger case going into any bear cycles we may see here in the next few years?
Yeah, absolutely. If we are going to go through another bear cycle, then those miners that have HPC as part of their business, are going to fare better because that's predictable revenues. That's not affected by Bitcoin price can go to zero. The HPC revenues won't be altered in one bit whatsoever. And this is why, a lot of the Wall Street guys like those companies that are going into HPC because there is a predictability about it. You sign a contract for a number of years. The contract states what the revenues are. We know what the costs are. These companies are data center providers. So they know the energy that's going to be utilized. They know the staffing requirements. They know all the additional costs that are going to be required there, the additional power that's used to deliver these HPC contracts, and then get that down to a real into a real plan, which is predictable. And looking at predictability, look at how some of these share prices have reacted. When you see the list of shares that have outperformed Bitcoin this year, the one key factor against all those shares is they're all looking at HPC. Some of these other companies that aren't like CleanSpark, their share hasn't performed anywhere near the likes of what Bitcoin's performed. But the ones that have got HPC, have performed really well. Bitdeer, Hut 8. I mean, we talked already in the podcast, Hut 8, without bearing the name, are going to deliver 430 megawatts to HPC. That'll be the second largest contract out there behind Core Scientific. Their share price has gone up. At one point, just during the competition period, it was close to 200% up, and we're only talking I think it was at the 2 month point. 2 months into the competition, their share price had increased by 2%. So all those people who selected Hut 8, and then the likes of Bitdeer, who also, for a similar reason, HPC, producing their own mining machine, diversified into literally every area. All Bitdeer needs to come out now and say, we're actually an energy company. And that's just game over. They've just done everything because they're doing everything else apart from the energy. So, just wait for the team to come out and say, you know what, we're actually an energy company in disguise. Those two companies have shown by navigating through this space and choosing the right business strategies. You can see that share price turn around. And, I can go back, I think February, Hut 8 share price was around about the $7 mark. And, even at today's price, it's into the mid 20s. So, a significant rise. Bitdeer as well. Earlier in the year, $5, $6, and again, it's over $20 today. So really good. These companies have had really good, good performance, based on the fact that they are diversified. And yes, we saw CleanSpark in March at $25, nearly a share, but where is it today? It's hovering in the sort of like, the $10 mark. It's really come a lot back down there. IREN's also one that's benefited. IREN, as well as highlighting that massive increase in hash rate. And bear in mind, they had they only had 6.2 exahash at the start here, so they got the biggest growth in hash rate this year of all the mining companies. They've looked at the HPC and gone, and spent a lot of money investing in HPC, and hopefully that delivers them a reasonably good second revenue stream. And they've got access to power pipeline that could, get them potentially a contract like Core Scientific as well. They've got another,
Yeah.
1.4 gigawatt site and a potential another site of a 1 gigawatt site as well. So, maybe not in 2025, but 2026, 2027, we might get an update from IREN to say they've got a partner aligned there, and then, look at where their share price might go. But, that's done really well as well this year in terms of comparison. But of all the miners, we have to go back to Core Scientific. That's the one that's got the biggest deal on paper at the moment. That's got a great deal. Average margin or an average net profit for the whole contract at 71%. That's net profit of average 71% for the whole contract. That's a 12-year contract, 71% net profit, all your costs gone. I mean, it's just mouthwatering.
It certainly is. Now, diversified revenue, another key theme or topic into 2025. The other one I wanted to quickly get your thoughts on, Anthony, is just the financial side of these companies, the balance sheet, financial instruments. We saw ATMs being hammered in 2024. I would say very successfully. In the most part, these companies were able to grow their market cap, grow their operations, as we just talked about. Now we're seeing convertible notes open up as the debt markets, interest rates become more attractive. This is another key difference we've talked about on the channel, and a real change in trend or tone from 24 to 25.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Michael Saylor probably takes a little bit of the applause for these companies following that sort of strategy. 2022, some of these miners were still going into the debt markets, paying 12, 13, 14, 15. I saw 18, 19% for some of the most, some of the biggest mining companies, not the smaller ones, some of the biggest mining companies paying 18, 19%. And all this information is held on their 10Qs, 10Ks. So, you can always see what the interest rates are. These convertible notes have allowed these companies to use another lever to grow. We've talked about levers before. What levers are available to these Bitcoin miners? There's not many, 3 or 4 levers. They can sell Bitcoin, which, more, probably half the miners have been selling Bitcoin all the way through the last couple of years. and B, they can raise capital through selling shares or via an ATM. So a lot of companies have made great use, like you said, in just a second ago, to really good. But a lot of companies have used, the dilution of shares not to the same effect, because the dilution of shares, the market knows what's happening straight away, and there's a premium that you're offering for a company or for an institution to come and buy those shares. So you're offering a premium price for those, and therefore the share price will drop straight away to that price that you're offering. So, shareholders, if you're offering, 10% discount, the share price will drop by 10% because that's what the market sees it as. It's, if you're offering one set of shares for that price, and the whole lot goes at
Yeah.
10%. But the ATMs have been really special for a number of the big miners because, we don't know when they're selling shares. We only find out when the 10Q comes out, the 10K comes out, and then you can see the level of shares. Now, CleanSpark have just managed to raise 650 million with a convertible note, and saying they haven't had to use the ATM. Well, when they brought their last set of results out, they'd sold 42 million shares in the previous 3 months using the ATM. So they'd used up the ATM in full. I think it was an 800 million ATM that was announced back in March, end of March, when we all know the date that they announced that ATM, because it was Easter. And so they've used that 800 up there, and now they literally days after that's been used up, they've gone out and got a $650 million convertible, at a 0% interest rate or coupon rate. And so, a great use of that. It effectively is debt. It will be debt on the balance sheet, but it's debt at a low rate. And there are a number of options they can do between now and the time when those coupons become exchangeable for shares. I think in their case, I think it's 2031, if I remember rightly.
Yeah.
And a lot of other companies have done this. Riot have just announced one. Marathon didn't just announce one; they announced two in the space of about a month. So they really focused on the Michael sale, and they used all that money to go and buy more Bitcoin. So at the moment, Marathon Digital, with about 44,000 Bitcoin on the balance sheet, so they've been making real use of that convertible note to do that. And so, yeah, it's a great way for some of these bigger companies to go out there and raise more capital, because they need it for this growth that's going to happen in 2025 and further along. Some of them have highlighted potentially to get to 100 exahash. Also looking at the HPC business to grow that further. TeraWulf as well. They announced a 500 million convertible note. That was they were one of the first ones to announce a convertible note, actually, if I remember rightly. That was quite a few months ago. So they've been using that, preparing, and we just had the announcement now with the client and delivery of that 70 megawatts. So it's all looking positive. These miners will still use the ATM in the future, though. I've spoken to a number of CEOs and saying, does a convertible mean you have to get permission to use the ATM? And the answer that came back was no, we can still use the ATM, which surprised me, because an ATM you would expect, if it's used significantly, would suppress the share price. I mean, the share price just doesn't keep rising if you're using an ATM and growing the share count by 10, 20, 30%. It's not just grow for the sake of growing. You've got to deliver something with that growth to get the market to give you a premium for that price.
Yeah, great commentary. It's so interesting listening to this. Some things stay the same, like the cheap power and the efficient fleets. Some things change with time, like the HODL strategy, the purchasing Bitcoin versus mining, and now the convertibles versus ATM. So a very interesting sector to watch. We always say there's no shortage of news, but this is really where we see some of the main similarities and differences as we enter these two different years. We'll continue. Maybe put a podcast out, Anthony, talking about keys to success for 2025 or something of that nature, but really interesting to see the industry evolve. As we talk about many times on the channel, this entire sector is very young, only 7 or 8 years old. So watching it mature and growing with it is definitely a pleasure for both of us. With that being said, we'd be curious to hear your thoughts in the comment section as we enter 2025. What are the key things you're looking for from these management teams? With that being said, Anthony, I'll kick it back to you for any closing thoughts today. But like we've talked about throughout the podcast, These companies have laid the foundation in 2024. The macro headwinds have now subsided. We're now seeing tailwinds in the sector. Bitcoin price, hash price, everything moving in the right direction. We feel 2025 is the year the Bitcoin miners are ready to run.
Yeah, and if you think about January, I mean, we've had a great run with Bitcoin. Even with the price today, we've had a phenomenal run since the start of the year, well over 100% increase in Bitcoin price. You know, if you think about you put money in the bank for a year, you might be looking to get 3 or 4%, but Bitcoin price has rallied over 100% this year. It started the year at 42,000. It's going to end the year probably close to 100,000. Now, 2025 in January. We've got the president, the USA's inauguration. You know, if you look at some of the speeches he's given during his run up to the election and post that in terms of what his feelings are around Bitcoin, the people he's announced in his cabinet are very much a pro-Bitcoin cabinet. If you look at them and compare them to the outgoing individuals, you know, it's a total different stance, and so the work that's being done state by state, and we've had the likes, you know, of Dennis on the podcast, who's you know, he's been highlighting the great work that Satoshi Action Fund have been doing. Dennis Porter, one of the sort of OGs in the space, he's been doing a fantastic job there, supported by a lot of people to get him to, you know, this work, you know, not just Dennis, it's a team behind Dennis, but they're doing such great work. He's going out there talking to countries now who are thinking of putting Bitcoin on their, you know, in their reserve. And so, you know, it started something small now, but it's got to be so much bigger. So I think 2025, everything that we're hearing is going to be a really good year for Bitcoin. And as long as the US don't spend that 200,000 that's already held on the balance sheet, let's see if they can use that as their first year target. I think they want basically 200,000 over 5 years to get to that million. And when they've already got 200,000 that they've confiscated, let that be the first 200,000. And then they've got 4 more years to get to that million of Bitcoin. And that will be a significant holding for any state, company, whatever. Maybe Michael Saylor's trying to get to a million before the US does. He's certainly, you know, nearly halfway there, so no one's going to bet against him. But yeah, it's going to be interesting 2025. Looking forward to it.
As am I. And each one of these people, whether it's the governments, MicroStrategy, any of these individual companies, retailers, anyone who's buying Bitcoin is adding to that supply demand imbalance, which is ultimately pushing the price up and making it even better in terms of margins, revenue for these miners. Another thing people forget a lot of times, Anthony, is the importance of these miners to secure the network itself and keep it running. So people talk about Bitcoin adoption, how great Bitcoin is, but oftentimes forget there is no Bitcoin network without the miners actually putting that information onto the blockchain. So a great episode here. Lots to think about, you guys. Let us know in the comment section how you're feeling. Have you given up on the miners? Are you feeling optimistic or somewhere in the middle? Feel free to subscribe, hit the like button. We'll see you back here tomorrow.